I guess I have to say goodbye to Robbie Robertson, a great man who touched my life, changed it, I guess, really, in a way. A great figure, an icon in my life, even though, he didn't know who I was, of course. And he was an icon in a lot of people's lives. Robbie Robertson is dead. Mr. Robertson, I'm breaking out the Canadian Club for you. See how to... And I want to take a moment to say goodbye. Come on, come on. If you'll bear with me, I have a story to tell about Robbie Robertson. It's not a great story. So, if if you don't stick around, don't worry about it. 2 stories, actually. But they were important to me, see? When I was a kid, let's see, when did the last Waltz come out? That must have been like 76 or something. So I would have been 16, something like that. Scrawny, dumb kid, why? And, I'd never had anything to do with music or rock and roll. Didn't care about that at all. I liked comic books. And science fiction fantasy books, and rock and roll was it was something my big brother did, or people at school did, and I was an outcast at school. I had no friends, or well, yeah, not really. I was not a friendly guy, and I was not the guy with friends, and I wasn't into this, did you hear the latest? Did you see this, see that, And even then, my generation was not the rock and roll generation. It was the disco generation. That was the disco time. It was Donna Summer. And the big band at school was Leonard Skinner, which was a great band. That was the rock and roll side. Donna Summers and the Bee Gees was the disco side. And, that was, and it was a major thing, are you rock and roll or are you disco? And that, said everything you need to know about you if you were the one or the other. And I didn't understand that conversation at all. But I liked movies. I loved movies, and I often would even skip school to go see movies, or get on the bus and go down into Honolulu to see movies, on the weekends or after school or something. And I would scour the newspapers, and back then in the newspapers, you had these, like probably on a Thursday or a Wednesday or something, when the new movies came out, you had these huge full page ads, and they were dramatic ads. It was like, black page with a spaceship, and it says it's coming, or, and then I would get all excited. I'm a sucker for hype, anything with hype, anything with a good graphic design poster that's dramatic. I will, take my money. I'm there. I'll just do it. And I knew who Martin Scorsese was, and I saw a new film by Martin Scorsese, and it's The Last Waltz, and it's just like a black page, and with like silhouettes of band members. I think one is maybe holding the guitar in the air or something like that. Like a dramatic band guys on the stage, and I had nothing to do with music. I didn't like music, but Martin Scorsese was a guy. I didn't know anything about the movie. I didn't know what it was. I loved the hype. It was new. It was big. And I said, I'm going to go see that movie, and I don't care what it is. And I went in, and I really I did not know who the band was. I did not know what rock and roll was, didn't know any of that, and I had no. There was no. I did not whistle tunes or tap my foot. When I was daydreaming. That was not a part of my life at all. I was listening to the music that my mother and father listened to, which was from the 40s, and we had a radio station, a great radio station. They would play it every morning. It was Aku, a guy named Aku, a Jewish guy named Hal Lewis, who had, failed at a singing career in Los Angeles and ended up in Hawaii doing a radio show. But he was a great radio personality. He was like the perfect radio person. He was like a conservative, but liberal at the same time. He would, say his opinion. He would, tear people down. He would let people call him and hang up on him, and then he would play all this music from the great period of music, of music in America, which is what Woody Allen said. It's the music of the big band music of the 50s and 60s, and the Andrews Sisters, and all of which I kind of soaked in. I didn't like it because it was mom and dad's music, but I soaked it in, and much later I realized how great this music really was. Cole Porter, you don't get better than that. But so that was the only music I knew, and it wasn't really my music. And so I went and I sat down in this theater, and the first thing that I see on the screen is, I don't know what the exact words were. Loud was in it. Turn this up loud. Turn the music up loud. It has to be played loud in huge, mountain high letters. And I thought, well, what is this? And then the last waltz came on. They were serving Thanksgiving in a theater in San Francisco, and these guys came on the stage and they played a waltz, and then they went into, it was probably Crippled Creek or something, and they just went into it, and one of their old friends came on the stage one after the other. I had not heard of any of these guys. Maybe Bob Dylan. Ringo Starr and Bob Dylan I knew. Neil Diamond I knew. All these other guys, I had no idea who these guys were. They came up on the stage one after the other, and they blew me away with this music, and it was just incredible. And I just sat there, and every note just went through me, and it was awakening, like I was like a sleeper cell. It awoke me from some kind of slumber, and I just loved this, and it was just the truth in the form of loudness. It was just incredible. And I went home and I realized, my God, I went to some random movie, and it was the best thing I've ever seen in my life. And after that, I immediately went out and saved my money and got every single record I could get from the band that I could get. Discovered them all. They were all beautiful. Got the soundtrack from The Last Waltz. That was the first one I got. I could still smell it, and it was so beautiful. It was so great, that music, God. And then I started buying up the music of all the friends that came, that came and did the music with them and did tributes to them, from Neil Young to Neil Diamond, Emmylou Harris, Dr. John, and of course Bob Dylan, and it was just incredible. And of course Bob Dylan, the Basement Tapes was a revelation, band and Bob Dylan, the Basement Tapes, and that just changed my life. It just from that afternoon, before that afternoon, I had no music in my life at all. After that afternoon, I was buying one CD after the other, one record after the other, box sets of everything, and just scooping it up and just loving it. That's what the Last Waltz did to me. That's what Robbie Robertson, the genius behind the band, the main songwriter, and the guy with the vision, and he just knew what rock and roll was, and it was great. Robbie Robertson played a big role in my life just because of that. Just because of that, and he was always this icon. And I'm sorry you had to go. Of course, you had a great life, and it was your time. But I'm grateful that you were here, man. I'm grateful that I discovered you, and that you came around, and that Martin Scorsese put it all on the camera, on film, and brought it to some kid in Hawaii, so he could open up a grand, beautiful facet of his life. And I shook his hand once. It was much later. I was in Germany. I was writing, I think it was for Variety back then. I was a German correspondent for Variety. It was before the Hollywood Reporter time, I think. And Wim Wenders, great German filmmaker, right? Did his big came out with his big masterpiece, this huge, I think it was a 3-hour science fiction movie. I thought, oh my God, finally he's doing something good, science fiction, and it was called Until the End of the World. And there was a lot of money in it, and they invited the main journalists up to the premiere. It was either a premiere or it was like a press premiere that afternoon before the actual premiere, something like that. I think we had almost the theater to ourselves. A lot of press, a lot of important people, but not the public, right? So I don't think it was the gala press event, but it was the press. It wasn't the gala event, but it was the press event, and so. I sat there and I watched it, and it was just, of course, a horrible movie, just completely waste of time. Wim Wenders, I'm sorry, with all due respect, he's not really a filmmaker. He's a photographer, and it's just he doesn't understand what story is. I think a lot of Europeans have this problem. They think that a film is they come in this European. They have this European idea of culture, which is like you go to a museum and you stand in front of the picture and you look at the picture, and then you go to the next picture and you look at the picture, and that's it, and that's culture. And so when the film comes along and they say, oh, it's a visual medium, so what they're thinking is that a film is basically like several stories museum, and you go from one picture to the next until you've seen all the pictures in the museum. And that's what a movie is, basically. But a movie, of course, is not a visual medium. It's a narrative medium. It's not about the images. If you take an image, Wim Wenders is the guy who will take a camera and sees the landscape, and he says, oh, my God, the desert, the landscape, the desert, the buttes, Australia outback. Oh, I have to have this on camera. So he takes the camera and he pans it like this across the horizon. He says, oh, it's beautiful. And, of course, it is beautiful, but the only difference between this panning the horizon and the guy taking a snapshot of the horizon, or the guy painting a horizon in one frame, is you get a little more of the same on this side and a little more of the same on this side, and that's it. It's just a picture. It's just a variation of a picture hanging in a museum. That's all it is, and that's all a lot of, especially in the 70s and 80s. I gotta say, a lot of European filmmakers think movies are, because they try to make it into something it's not, which is, European museum culture. And that's not it. It's not a visual medium. It's a narrative medium. It's all about the chronology. If you go into a movie and it's halfway through and you watch 5 minutes of it and walk out, you've seen pictures, but you have not seen the movie. You only see the movie if you go in at the beginning, you sit through it, you come out at the end, and then you have experienced not a collection of images, you've experienced a story, and the story goes through you into your brain and into your heart and emotions, and it moves you in some way and gives you something for your life, which is more than just images. It's a story. It's a narrative medium. And I think a lot of, especially European, but maybe also, artsy, pretentious filmmakers don't understand. They think they're just, it's a museum with a little more to the left and a little more to the right. That's all it is. And that was my beef about Wim Wenders, who, by the way, when you interview him, though, he can really talk up a movie. His theories of the movie are great. He can explain the movie in a way that is just fascinating. oh my God, this has to be the greatest thing I've ever, this is brilliant. This is incredible. And it just, everything makes sense. And then you see the movie and you're just falling asleep. It's just terrible. Okay. So anyway, so we sat through this horrible movie, and it was produced by the same guy who produced The Last Waltz, who was Jonathan Lit something. And he had been a roadie or a tour manager with a band back in the day when the band was playing with Bob Dylan. And then he went into the movies, and he did a movie with Scorsese. And then he introduced when The Last Waltz came along, the goodbye tour, or the goodbye concert of the band. He introduced Scorsese to Robbie Robertson, and then they made this documentary film, the Last Waltz, which my big brother didn't think it was a real film. I came home and oh my God, this is the greatest thing. I can't believe this is a real rock and roll. And of course he was a rock and roll, and he said, no, that's bullshit. No, this is some movie. It's made up. They invented the band for the movie. It's like the Monkees. It's not an actual. And I really fought with him on that one. I was 16 years old, right? And it's stupid. And I really fought with him on that one. But he insisted. He really gave me a hard time on that. He insisted that it was just a fake band, but it was, of course, the band, The Last Waltz. And so anyway, so this producer introduced Robbie Robertson to Scorsese, and they made that Last Waltz movie together. And then this producer produced this big budget science fiction movie with Wim Wenders, Until the End of the World, and put a lot of money into it. And he got all his friends to do the soundtrack. And Wim Wenders said, okay, I want all you pop stars do the soundtrack. Elvis Costello was on it. Peter Gabriel, a lot of pop stars was on the soundtrack, including Robbie Robertson. His song was not on the published soundtrack, but it was in the movie. So anyway, and Wim Wenders said, okay, I want you to do a song an original song for the movie that you could imagine would be in the future. And so they all did this music, which is great music. U2, of course, famously from Achtung Baby, which was a great, just a great, fabulous album. But so it was a great soundtrack, a terrible movie. But some of the guys from the soundtrack were at the showing. So when the lights went up, we turned around, we looked around, and there they were. Wim Wenders was sitting there, Peter Gabriel was sitting there, and there he was, next to Peter Gabriel, Robbie Robertson. I recognized him, and I saw him, and I thought, oh my God, this is the guy. And this is like, if God in that moment were to say, I've decided to destroy the world, or I've decided to destroy this theater. I think it was in Berlin. I think they shipped us up to Berlin to see in a theater. I think it was the Zoo Theater, in fact. I'm not sure. I'm going to destroy this theater. If you can give me one good reason why you should not destroy this theater, tell me now. And if God were to ask me, for one reason, show me one good man, and I will not destroy this theater and everyone, and I would turn around and point to Robbie Robertson. He would be the guy, and God would say, oh, okay, you're right. I can't destroy this theater and everyone. It's Robbie Robertson is here. And so I kind of never done that before. I kind of pushed my way up to him and bunched my way up to him and confront him. And I said, Mr. Robertson, I just want to shake your hand. And he gave me his hand, and I shook it, and I said, thank you. I'm really glad I got to do that. He gets it all the time, of course, but for me, it was important. Robbie Robertson. I'll never stop loving that music. The Last Waltz. Mr. Robertson, thank you and Godspeed.